Okay, hi everybody. So first I'd like to say happy anniversary to Stephen Goen and Albert Stewart. And then also, before I get started, I'd like to say that I had some dental work this morning and my mouth is still frozen, especially right here, especially the bottom here. So my speech will be affected. And then I'm probably not going to say as much as I planned to say yesterday, but I'm just going to make the main points. So I'm going to start with my press release and then I'll make those points and then that'll be it. Okay, so my protest is called 1 year after expulsion. Anishinaabe, MMIWG, that's missing murdered Indigenous women and girls, survivor, demands full investigative report from ADR Ottawa, that's Stephen Goen's company. I'm here also, I forgot to say, that I'm here at the Human Rights Monument on Elgin Street. That's where I'm located. That's where I'm going to be doing these protests this summer, starting with this relaunch. Okay, so I'm a survivor and I demand full investigative report from ADR Ottawa, that's Stephen Goen's company, a few blocks that way, and St. Paul University. So exactly 1 year ago today, on July 24th, 2025, St. Paul University informed Anishinaabe researcher and MMIWG survivor, Dana Hickey, in writing, that an independent investigation under its prevention of harassment and discrimination policy had concluded. The letter stated that a deemed complaint of discrimination and psychological harassment against professors and the administration was not founded, that a complaint against Hickey was founded, that she had breached confidentiality provisions, and that she was immediately removed from the PhD program in learning community. A notice of trespass under the Ontario Trespass to Property Act followed, barring her indefinitely from the university property. Hickey states that she never filed a formal complaint. University professors suggested several times that she do so. She declined, citing her experience that formal complaints made after complaints have already been filed against a person are frequently treated as retaliatory and can lead to the most serious consequences, including expulsion. It is her position that 2 formal administrative complaints launched against her were themselves retaliatory responses to her informal complaints of conflicts of interest, racism, and other discrimination based on prohibited grounds. At no time did I complain of psychological harassment, neither formally nor informally, Hickey said. I did raise serious concerns with the investigator, Stephen Goen, regarding devaluation of my work, improper complaints in process, conflicts of interest, retaliation, intimidation, racism and discrimination on prohibited grounds, erasure of my work and my identity as an Anishinaabe researcher and MMIWG survivor, dehumanization and genocide by erasure, an ontological assault on my existence. A complaint of psychological harassment, which I think is so stupid, made against her by a vice president on behalf of someone else was not disclosed to her until many weeks after the process had officially begun, and then it was folded into the investigation. Hickey has repeatedly requested a copy of the full investigative report, both during the investigation and after the notice of her expulsion on July 24th, 2025. She never received it. Under Ontario's Occupational Health and Safety Act, the university's own policies, and the university's own policies, parties are entitled to be informed in writing of the results of an investigation and any corrective actions. The July 24th letter provided that summary but did not provide the full report containing the detailed findings, the evidence considered, or the reasoning. Given the severity of the outcome, permanent expulsion from my doctoral program and an indefinite ban from campus, I believe greater transparency is warranted, Hickey stated. A First Nations student and survivor facing such consequences should be able to understand, in concrete detail, the basis on which those decisions were made. The continued refusal to release the report leaves me without that information. Approximately 3 weeks into her protest outside the investigator's office last year, that's ADR Ottawa, Alternative Dispute Resolution, an entire scam industry. It's just over there. So, around 3 weeks into my protest outside the investigator's office last year, a few blocks from here, Ottawa Police Detective Albert Stewart contacted Hickey. In a formal email dated August 27, 2025, he advised that he had reviewed a report submitted by Stephen Gone and that, while her right to protest was recognized, the nature and persistence of her actions were approaching the threshold of criminal harassment. Criminal harassment. Because they allegedly caused another person to reasonably feel fear for their safety. My poor face. Okay, he issued a formal warning. The F's are hard to say. F words are hard for me to say today. Okay, he issued a formal warning that continued behavior of that nature could result in further police involvement, including potential charges. And that's really poor. Albert Stewart. Hickey notes that she has concluded dozens of peaceful protests in Ottawa on a range of issues, has clearly and repeatedly stated that she opposes violence, has no history of criminality or violence, and that there is no evidence that she poses a risk to anyone's safety. St. Paul University, federated with the University of Ottawa, where the investigator Stephen Gone holds a part-time faculty appointment, and the Ottawa Police Service all publicly commit to fairness, equity, diversity, and inclusion, addressing institutional and systemic racism, and showing empathy and consideration for the experiences of First Nations people affected by the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls genocide. In Hickey's view, the decision to impose the most severe sanctions available on an Anishinaabe PhD student who raised concerns about racism, erasure, and related issues, while refusing to provide the full investigative report, together with the subsequent report to police and the resulting warning, constituted an effort to intimidate and erase an Anishinaabe PhD student and MMIWG survivor, and to silence her self-advocacy because the protest was succeeding in raising public awareness about these issues. Hickey is protesting the hypocrisy and the lack of transparency. She is asking St. Paul University and the investigator to release the full investigative report so that the process and its conclusions can be examined. This is a matter of procedural fairness and accountability in academic institutions, she said. I invite interested Canadians to support the simple principle that when a university imposes the most serious sanctions available against a student, the student should be given the detailed record on which those sanctions rest. So that's really it for my press release. I have a few points. If you're new to my channels, give you a little bit of background. So it is my view that I was set up for this sabotage and racism by Aurélie Lacassan, whom I've known for 15 years. and who was on my master's thesis work committee. So like I already have a graduate degree. I have a Master of Indigenous Relations. And as I just said, Aurelie was on my committee. My supervisor was someone else, but Aurelie was a committee member. And you may be interested to know that also Grand Council Chief Linda DeBossige was also a committee member on that master's work. So in 2010, in 2010, I graduated with my undergrad, okay, a Bachelor of Arts in, my major was political science, and, most of my electives were in Native studies, or Indigenous studies, whatever they call it now. So that's how I know Aurelie Lacassagne. I was in the program as a student when she arrived at Laurentian University to teach. And so then I took several of Aurelie's classes. She was, involved in all the programming going on with the department and so on and so on. Then in 2015, that's when I started my, I got sober in 2011. So I graduated 2010. I got sober in 2011. And then I went to grad school, back to school in 2015, and I started that master's program. And, since I've been sober, I've been very successful in all of my graduate studies, achieving very high marks. And my master's thesis, which is on my research gate, you can look that up, and you can download my research on my profile on the website ResearchGate. And that research is very successful and very well read, like in my view. I mean, for me, it's a lot. It's very successful for me, okay? So then I graduated, in 2019, I finished that dissertation, okay, that master's thesis. And then I graduated in 2020, the same time as my daughter graduated high school. It was super fun because we graduated together in the summer of 2020. And then in September, that's when we moved here to Ottawa, and my daughter started over at Carleton in university. So that's how that all went. So then around 2022, that's when I came out as an MMIWG survivor, okay? And the event, although they've been trying to kill me my entire life, the major event that I refer to when I identify as that occurred in the late 1990s. And I waited for 25 years to come out about this for a reason, okay? Many reasons that I won't go into now because I have to keep this within a reasonable amount of time, but I've discussed that before. So I waited 25 years, but it was around 2022 when I started talking about it. And then a well-known jackass bought the Twitter platform, okay? So that happened. Was that 2022 or 2023? I don't even really remember. It was a while ago now. And so then it might have been 2023. And then that's when I really kicked it up. My online stuff, my protesting, my advocacy, all that kind of work that I've been doing online on my channels. I'm no longer on Meta, but I did have Meta products at the time. I no longer use Meta products for the time being, as everything is going well for me at the moment on X. Well enough anyway. So when he bought that, myself and many others, including Sam Cooper, I'm pretty sure, I'm not obsessed with him or nothing, but the way it looks is he really ramped things up around that time too. And he might have left mainstream media around that time and started his own thing or whatever. It looks like that. I haven't gone all down to check. I will if I have to. I am very interested in Sam Cooper's work, and I recommend his book, which I'm still trying to finish, almost. So I got it with me. I'm carrying it around a lot. Read it. It's a very most informative book written by a Canadian in the history of books written by Canadians. Okay, Charms? Highly recommend it. Okay, so then, I know for sure in 2023, I was, doing my online advocacy. I was doing this whole thing where I chase the chiefs around at their various assemblies, and and I do it like a knowledge translation in my videos and that about like an analysis of what I'm seeing and hearing. And a knowledge translation mainly for the benefit of First Nations youth, although I realize that others benefit. But the reason I do all that is because I have a duty to First Nations youth. They're being lied to, and they're being exploited. And this is a genocide, and it's a very serious problem, and someone has to do something, and someone has to do something different. So then and then it was in the summer of 2022, maybe we'll go back a little bit. It was in the summer of 2022 when I met with Orly Lakasan. We had some, I think we had dinner over in, I forget that street. Forget where it was. Anyways, somewhere here in Ottawa, we had dinner one day, and she offered to supervise my PhD research, right? We were talking about what I'm going to do next and everything. The whole thing just went down with the Native Women's Association of Canada, on and on. I can't tell all these stories all over again here, but I've told them before. So we were talking about what I'm going to do, and she offered to supervise my PhD research. Do you understand? So what I'm saying is that it's my view that she set me up for this sabotage. And I don't think it's the first time she's done that. I don't have any evidence, but I wouldn't be surprised if I'm not the first person that she's done that to. If she's been involved in other setups, these setups are very common, and you really got to watch. You can't really trust anybody. These people act like they're your friends, and you want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and you don't want to think these awful things about them. But Orly Lakasan turned out to be one of the worst humans that I know personally. Okay, and it can happen to anybody. So these setups are happening all over the place, not just in academia. Justin Trudeau set up a whole whack of people, and I often talk about that. And some of them don't survive the setups. Do you understand? So, this is what I'm saying. People die over this stuff. And when First Nations, when they survive all of the, all of the obstacles and all of the traumas that we experience just from trying to live out, survive out here, and then that's what happens when you get to the level that I got to when you get to grad school, and this is what happens. It's enough to make you, and that's what happens. You see what I'm saying? This is why it's a genocide. They're trying to kill us, and so then that's the reason why they conspired to set me up for this. They're trying to kill me, and they have been, like I said earlier, for my entire life. So what happens is that when people get set up, and then this whole stuff, what happened to me is very typical. Okay, so they administer the racism, and then the person starts complaining. Sometimes that goes different. Sometimes people file a formal complaint, sometimes they don't. Sometimes people freak out. Sometimes all kinds of different things can happen. But what happened with me is rather typical, I would say, and it happens all the time, and because they're constantly misusing and weaponizing those internal processes against, vulnerable populations, but also against each other. They are on a constant basis using weaponizing those internal processes against each other. I'm not saying that makes racism okay, though. Okay, just because they do it to each other doesn't mean, you should have known. We're doing it to each other, so why should you be any different? No, it doesn't make racism okay. So then, so sometimes people are really loud at first about it, and they're trying to let everybody know, or they're or they speak their mind, or or they're speaking out, and they think that they feel like they have a duty as well to speak out. And that, the philosophy around that duty, like I'm saying, is a deontological philosophy. Sometimes God Sad talks about that. I think I read something about what he was saying about that. But anyway, my obligation to the youth is, philosophically speaking, that's a deontological duty that I have. That's where my philosophy on that is coming from. And Indians aren't the only ones that understand that kind of philosophy. And this philosophy matters, right? And, you know, I mean, there's other words for it. That's the English word, deontological, in, you know, in the philosophical literature, right? In the science of it. So sometimes people are really loud, and then like what happens is that they end up like having to bring it down or completely shut it down because of all the threats that they receive, right? Typical stuff. So, you know, like they'll tell you, they'll send you like warnings or whatever. They'll tell you that you're breaching this policy, breaching that policy. They'll get lawyers to write to you or call you and threaten you. Like sometimes cops, like it's happened to me. And so then that's when people like, they figure, okay, well, what am I going to do? Like, you know, like sometimes they want to take it to like another level, another administrative level. And so then they don't want to compromise that. But like, you know, in my experience, a lot of the time that the reasons why people stop speaking out, there's two major reasons. And one of them is that they feel like they'll never work again. Like, I mean, in their field, because these are all fake jobs, like I'm telling you. And so then, like, these people have spent, like, they've invested, like, a whole lot of money into that education that they have. And, like, all of their time and other resources have gone into developing that career. And so, like, I mean, starting from scratch is, like, almost, like, for them, it's like unthinkable. It's unthinkable starting from scratch for them. And so then, you know, they feel like they have no other choice other than to, you know, find another fake job elsewhere, okay? And they figure that, you know, if they continue to speak out, that they'll never work again in one of these fake jobs for which they're trained, okay? So the difference between them and me is that I don't want another fake job. I'm done with the fake jobs, okay? I have my dignity. So I'm not gonna work any fake jobs because, like I said, it's not dignified. And so then it's like, you're the selling your soul to the devil, and, you know, working on fake stuff, you know, at the expense of often Canadian taxpayers, and you know, and that's not all. And so then that's totally unethical and undignified, and I'm not going to be doing it. And that's why I'm working a minimum wage job trying to survive this genocide right now. So, and another reason why, another major reason in my view why they stop speaking out is ego. So, you know, generally speaking, most people, they don't want others to know about the way that they've been treated, right? And so then, like, I also don't have that problem. I mean, it's not like, none of this is a reflection on me as a human. I'm an excellent human, an outstanding individual, you know, and I haven't done anything wrong. And all of the stuff that I'm accused of is what they do. So, and like I always say, all of the people that I protest are constantly projecting what they do onto their victims, onto their targets, right? And it's just nonstop with that. So these are the two reasons. What, you know, they figure they'll never work again in their fake industry, and also, you know, for reasons having to do with ego, they don't want others to know about the way that they've been treated. And you know, it's like that for the chiefs too. Like, I mean, the reason why you know, community people don't get a lot of information about what's really going on out here, you know, for these chiefs and that, is because they don't want us to know the way that Canada and the other governments actually treat them. They don't want us to know that, because it's atrocious. And I mean, even the stuff that's publicly known is one thing, and the reality beneath that is entirely like a whole nother thing, okay? Like, because, you know, they're constantly blackmailing each other and so on and all this, and they're always trying to collect the dirt on each other, you know. So whoever you're having an affair with, however much money you gambled, all this kind of stuff, whatever you did, you know, they got all this dirt and they're always holding it over, and, you know, like all that kind of thing. It's like very Epstein-esque, and these are common strategies, right? And so these are the reasons why they don't want us to know about the way that they're really treated, right? So for me, you know, I've done a lot of work on ego management. It was central to getting sober. Like I couldn't have done it. I don't know how people can do it without like a lot of that ego management. Like I had to figure out. It took me years. I still work on it. I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not really trying to be like super perfect either. Because I mean, I would if circumstances were different. But see, a lot of what I do are methods. And it's not a reflection of who I am as a person, you guys. All this, some of the things that you may find offensive, that's not who I am. This is like a character, okay? These are methods. I'm smart. Do you understand? And the reason I have to do these methods that are different and some might consider offensive is because someone has to do something and someone has to do something different. And so then I don't have a lot of resources with which I can, like, you know, come up with a whole bunch of other methods. And so with the resources I have, these are the methods that I've developed, and it really is more of a character than it is a reflection of who I really am. Okay, do you understand? So anyway, so let's move on to this. So there is 0, capital letters, Z-E-R-O, nil reasons in the entire world why anyone should trust these people. And by that I mean the academic industrial complex with which Stephen Goen and alternative dispute resolution are a part and are folded in. There's no reason, 0 reason in the world that we have to trust any of these people, okay? Or why we should have any confidence in any of these people, and no one does, okay? So like anyone with any shred of experience in this kind of stuff that I've been talking about knows that to be true. And you know, this is why I'm speaking out, because younger people need to know that before they get to university. And the others who are like seeing this, like it's not like this kind of weaponization of these policies and so on is only happening in academia. It's happening all over the place. Like all of the professions, okay, basically they have disposed of their professional ethics, and their regulators are using their regulative like procedures and policies and procedures to like enforce this kind of stuff. And like that's why there's so much like this whole human rights thing is really problematic, and it's gotten way out of control. And we've seen some of these human rights tribunals just completely just perverting like everything that they were established for. Is they're just perverting that all inside and out, okay? So I have 0 confidence that a fair and proper process occurred in this case that I'm protesting today, okay? And there is 0 reason for me or anyone else to have any such confidence that a proper process occurred, that a fair or proper process occurred here, okay? No one believes that. I don't believe it. We have no reason to believe it. Anybody who says anything else is gaslighting us. Like, save it. So in my view, the results, like I was speaking about in my press release, those are invalid, okay? And if Stephen Goen doesn't like my protest, then he can defend himself by sending me his investigative report, okay? Pretty simple stuff here. Common sense, as they say, right? Now, about Albert Stewart, detective, and the Ottawa Police Service, who have a whole bunch of their own problems and controversies and issues going on here, and should really, like, you know, think better than to try to add to that. Should think twice about like criminalizing me, because I'm raising public awareness about systemic racism, bias, and procedural impropriety in this process, because it only enables and condones this kind of unethical conduct, which is going on constantly all around us. And in this case, it's, in my view, it's genocide. So if the OPS wants to hop on that bandwagon, it would be a really disappointing shame for Ottawa and Ottawanians, like, is that what they call them? I forget. And Canadians in general, I really think, okay? Ridiculous. Like, I mean, what are they gonna do? So they're gonna send me to jail for speaking out about a fake report that people claim justifies my expulsion, but that they refuse to release. They're going to criminalize me for speaking out about it. Like, that's obviously not legal. So that's pretty much it. I can wrap it up now. So, you know, Stephen Goen has no say in what I do at my peaceful protests. Okay, so I'll be here at the Human Rights Monument doing my relaunched protest demanding that investigative report. Protests are not harassment, Steve. Accountability is not harassment, Steve. Okay? So don't call up your chum, Albert. And don't call me up, Albert, because that's BS. Basically, what's happened is that these people have developed these methods, such as withholding these reports and calling it legal, to like avoid their accountabilities. And they've gotten so used to it for the reasons that I said, because people stop, if they do start speaking out at all, they stop shortly after they start because of the reasons that I described earlier. And so then, like, basically, like I said, I started speaking out in 2022 and I ramped it up in 2023. So I started at the university in the fall of 2023, and all of them, including my supervisor who followed me on Meta and all that stuff for all those, like, for over a decade at that point, they all knew I had come out as a survivor and I was constantly talking about it. They all saw me following the chiefs around. They all saw me, like, for example, recently, like before that, I was protesting the Anishinaabe Nation for excluding me from a conference they had in Sault Ste. Marie. They've seen my protests, they've seen my analyses, they've seen my knowledge translation on here. And what they were doing at the university is, like, I think it's coordinated. Like, for example, I have evidence that there are correspondences and exchanges of information between the university and the First Nation that are not that are not authorized, like that are, you know, that are breaches of confidentiality and breaches of their obligations, and all that kind of stuff. And so then, like, in my view, all this stuff is coordinated, and, you know, between not only the university but others, including, you know, Doki's First Nation, and, like, you know, like some of the people that are involved in sort of the pulling the strings, you know, about with this kind of stuff. I'm not saying all of them are, like, at the top of it, but people like Dominic Giroux, for example, you know, who's involved in a lot of what went down over at Laurentian University and all this kind of stuff. These are the sorts of people who are trying to, like the architects of and they've developed a lot of these methods, or they've overseen the development of them and all this kind of thing, eh? And so, like, I mean, I think it's all just one big song and dance with these kinds of people. And so then, like, they would, so what they did to me at school was all like an effort to silence that advocacy and those analyses that I was doing and that speaking out that I was doing, and everything that they've done since then. Like, I mean, as soon as they launched their, like, Heather Eaton is hilarious. As soon as they launched their investigation and I didn't stop talking out, like, they sent me a letter telling me that I'm breaching confidentiality, and, like, I'm not going to stop telling people what they're doing, because I have, like, it's, they breached their end of the deal. And so then, I mean, you can't say, oh, well, we can breach our ethics anytime that we want, or we could breach our obligations anytime we want, but you can't step out of line or else you get expelled. Like, I mean, none of that, all that kind of stuff is invalid, if you want to ask me, okay? And so then that's my view on it. And so, and I never did stop speaking out, and I continued on a regular basis, and I continue to this very day. And so then, you know, and so that's why last year, you know, in August, in late August, that's why Stephen Goen called up his buddy Albert Stewart to make a police report, you know, alleging that I'm conducting criminal harassment against him. It's all efforts to silence me, and all of these efforts have failed. I'm still here today. I'm still talking about the same issues, and they have failed. Every single attempt that they have tried, and every single method that they have developed to silence me has failed, and I win. And so that's like, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, you know, like even though I suffered a lot of damages, including like financial damages and all that kind of stuff, like, I mean, that's not the reason why I do this. The reason why I do this is to train First Nations youth about what really goes on out here, okay? And so, like, before they have to find out for themselves through direct experience, not saying that they shouldn't. I mean, go ahead and get a fake job. Go ahead and enroll into a fake university program. Go ahead and see it for yourself. That might actually be a good idea. Some of you might have some kind of time to waste until, like, we can get a grip on a couple of things here. What are you gonna do, right? Like, I mean, there's some options, like have some kids maybe, or maybe take one of these fake jobs or enroll into a fake program and just scope it out for yourself, you know what I mean? Type of thing. Like, I mean, I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying you need to know, and before you find out, like, without anybody like explaining to you, because all this stuff is really well known. And all of your mentors, they all know all about this kind of thing. And they're not telling you. They have a duty and they're not doing it. And that's not okay. So that's the reason why I do this stuff. And that's the reason why I continue my self-advocacy. You know, I mean, it's not to ruin anybody. It's just to tell the truth about what people are doing, and it's to defend my human dignity, and it's, you know, to train the youth so that they can be better prepared, you know, when they're targeted for the same kind of stuff. Because, like, I mean, no one is exempt. No, like, anybody can be targeted. Even when you do all their dirty work and you're perfect and you're guzzling the indignities and you're doing all their dirty stuff, you can still be targeted. Like, no one is excluded from this kind of thing. And like I often say, these psychos will stab each other in the back until there's only one left who cannot survive without the others. There is no other trajectory for these psychos. Do you understand? So these are some of the reasons why I do this. Thanks for watching and tolerating my affected speech from my dental work earlier this morning. And you know, and I'll be down here again this summer to do my public service here regarding this kind of unethical abuse that's going on, and abuse of power, and, you know, and systemic abuses on, you know, vulnerable populations and all that. I'll be doing my public service in that regard to, you know, something's gotta give. It's not okay. And I think it's, you know, I think me and people like me are heroes for speaking out about it. And so then, you know, that's why I do it. I guess that's really it for now. And, you know, like, I mean, back to school is just around the corner. And I really think that I have a duty to inform the new students at St. Paul University about what's really going on in there. And so then, you know, I think that's a very good, valuable service, and that I have a duty to do that. And so that'll be later, you know, later in the summer or fall. But for now, I'm here. Maybe I'll show you my signs real quick.
Yeah.
This is my view. Stephen Gowen's report is fake. Okay? So, you know, I mean, it could very possibly not exist. It was never written. That could be, that would not surprise me one bit. Okay? So they could have written up their fake results. Like, their fake results were that a complaint that I never made is invalid, is not founded, excuse me, it's not founded. So I never made a complaint of psychological harassment. So they found that a complaint that I never made is not founded. So right away there, that's really a problem. But I mean, they could have come up with that without having to actually write a real report. So until, you know, here's my other sign. change my mind, Stephen Gone. Like, your report is fake. If you want to change my mind, produce it. Send me the full report. Easy as that. Okay, this is not complicated. Doesn't take a, you know, it's not rocket science. Okay, and this isn't installing microchips into people's brains or none of that. Pretty easy stuff to understand, chums. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.